know, it's funny. I am disappointed, just not in myself.
The coffee mug hit the kitchen table with a ceramic clink that somehow managed to sound like mockery. I stared at the words printed in cheerful red letters, "World's Biggest Disappointment." My 16-year-old daughter Chloe giggled behind her phone camera, while my wife Tessa smirked from across our cramped kitchen. "Happy Father's Day, Tom," Tessa chirped, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "We thought you'd appreciate some honesty for once." I picked up the mug, turning it slowly in my hands. After 18 years of marriage and countless Father's Days, this was what I got. Not even a card, just public humiliation disguised as a gift. "This is going to get so many likes," Chloe whispered, still filming. "Dad's face is priceless." My name is Tom Richter, and I'm 44 years old. 6 months ago, I was a senior IT technician at Morrison Industries, pulling down $60,000 a year and supporting my family. Then the layoffs came, and suddenly I was just another unemployed middle-aged guy in Omaha, Nebraska, watching his life crumble one rejection letter at a time. "You know what, Tessa?" I said, setting the mug down carefully. "You're absolutely right. I am disappointed. Just not in the way you think." Tessa's smile faltered slightly. She was 36, still attractive in that sharp-edged way that had caught my attention in college, but the years had added a hardness to her features that no amount of makeup could hide. Her real estate license had expired 2 years ago, and she'd shown no interest in renewing it. These days, she spent most of her time on social media, crafting the perfect image of a struggling but brave single mother, even though we were still married and living in the same house. "Don't be such a drama queen," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It's just a joke." "Is it?" I asked. "Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like you've been setting up this punchline for months." Chloe lowered her phone, sensing the shift in mood. She looked so much like her mother. The same auburn hair, the same green eyes, the same ability to cut you down with a smile. "God, Dad, why do you have to make everything so serious?" she said. "Can't you just laugh at yourself for once?" I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the linoleum floor of our rental house. The place was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a table for 3. We'd been here for 5 years, ever since Tessa's spending habits caught up with us, and we lost the house in Benson. "You want to know what's funny?" I said, my voice staying level despite the rage building in my chest. "What's funny is that I've been busting my A for 6 months trying to find work, sending out resumes, going to interviews, doing everything I can to keep this family afloat. And instead of support, I get a mug calling me a disappointment." Tessa rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go with the sufferer act again." "Sufferer act?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "Tessa, I've been paying the rent with my unemployment checks while you spend your days making TikTok videos about how hard your life is. When exactly did I become the villain in this story? When you stopped being a man and started being a burden?" She shot back, her mask finally slipping. "Look at yourself, Tom. You're pathetic. Sitting around in your pajamas all day feeling sorry for yourself. Do you think any woman wants to be married to that?" The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of our ancient refrigerator. Chloe had gone completely still, her phone forgotten in her hands. Even she seemed shocked by the venom in her mother's voice. "There it is," I said quietly. "The truth finally comes out." I walked to the counter and poured myself a cup of coffee, using the regular mug I'd grabbed from the cabinet. The world's biggest disappointment mug sat on the table like evidence of something broken beyond repair. "You know what the real joke is, Tessa? I actually believed we were in this together. I thought marriage meant supporting each other through the hard times, not kicking each other when we're down." She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "Don't you dare lecture me about marriage. I've been carrying this family for years while you coasted along in your little IT job thinking you were hot crap because you could fix computers. That little IT job paid for this house, paid for Chloe's school supplies, paid for your car. Past tense, Tom. Paid, as in not anymore. Now you're just dead weight." I looked at my daughter, hoping to see some flicker of the little girl who used to run to me when she scraped her knee, who used to ask me to read her bedtime stories. Instead, I saw a stranger wearing her face, someone who'd learned to see me through her mother's eyes. "What about you, Chloe?" I asked. "Is this how you really feel?" She shifted uncomfortably, glancing between me and her mother. "I mean, Dad, you have been kind of depressing lately, and It's not like you're trying that hard to find a job. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not trying that hard? I walked to the kitchen counter and grabbed a manila folder I'd left there the night before. Inside were printouts of job applications, interview confirmations, rejection letters. I dropped it on the table with a thud. 47 applications in the last month, I said. 12 phone interviews, 4 in-person interviews, 3 second interviews, 0 job offers. But sure, I'm not trying hard enough. Tessa barely glanced at the folder. Maybe if you weren't so picky about the salary. I applied to work at Best Buy, Tessa. Best Buy. For $12 an hour. They said I was overqualified and would probably quit as soon as I found something better. So tell me, what exactly should I be doing differently? She crossed her arms over her chest. I don't know, Tom. Figure it out. That's what men do. They figure it out instead of making excuses. I stared at her for a long moment, really seeing her for the first time in months. The woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who seemed to take genuine pleasure in my pain. When had that happened? When had we become enemies instead of partners? You're right about one thing, I said finally. I am disappointed, but not in myself. I'm disappointed that I wasted 18 years of my life with someone who turns out to be this cruel when things get tough. I set my coffee mug in the sink and walked toward the bedroom. Behind me, I could hear Tessa starting up again, her voice rising with indignation. But I wasn't listening anymore. I had some thinking to do. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, while Tessa slept beside me, or pretended to sleep. The space between us felt like an ocean, cold and impossible to cross. I thought about the mug sitting in the kitchen, about the look in Chloe's eyes when she filmed my humiliation, about the casual cruelty in Tessa's voice when she called me pathetic. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, I made a decision. I got up quietly, pulled a duffel bag from the closet, and started packing. Just the essentials. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the folder of job applications. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to think, don't call. I walked out of that house at 4:30 in the morning, and neither my wife nor my daughter stirred. That should have told me everything I needed to know right there. 2 weeks later, I was living in a studio apartment above Murphy's Bar on Dodge Street, surviving on unemployment checks and the occasional freelance computer repair job. The place was a dump. Water stains on the ceiling, a radiator that clanged like a ghost in chains, neighbors who seemed to conduct their entire lives at maximum volume. But it was mine. And for the first time in months, I could think clearly. I was eating cereal for dinner and scrolling through job postings when my phone buzzed. A text from my best friend, Max Sullivan. Dude, you need to see this. Check Tessa's Facebook. Max had been my friend since high school, back when we were both skinny kids who spent our weekends playing video games and talking about girls we'd never have the courage to ask out. He'd become a cop, spent 15 years on the force before a back injury forced him into early retirement. Now he worked security at a downtown office building and spent his free time keeping tabs on the various disasters in our social circle. I opened Facebook and navigated to Tessa's page. The first post made my stomach drop. It was a video of her sitting in our kitchen, tears streaming down her face. Real tears, not the crocodile variety she usually deployed when she wanted something. Behind her, I could see Chloe in the background looking appropriately devastated. I don't know what else to do, Tessa was saying to the camera. Tom left us 2 weeks ago. No explanation, no warning. He just disappeared. Chloe keeps asking when Daddy's coming home, and I don't know what to tell her. The video had been posted 6 hours ago and already had 43 comments and 22 shares. I scrolled through the responses, my anger building with each sympathetic message. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Men can be such cowards. Praying for you and Chloe. You're so strong. What kind of father abandons his family like that? You deserve better, Tessa. You always have. I called Max immediately. Jesus Christ, Tom. Where have you been? He answered on the first ring. Half the neighborhood thinks you're dead in a ditch somewhere. I'm fine. I'm living downtown. Did you see the video? Yeah, I saw it. Pretty convincing performance. She should win an Oscar. Max had never liked Tessa. Not since the early days of our marriage when she'd made it clear she thought his influence on me was a problem. She'd spent years trying to distance me from my friends, always finding reasons why I shouldn't go out with the guys or why they couldn't come over to the house. She's telling people I abandoned them, I said, that I just disappeared without explanation. Well, technically, just don't. You know what was happening in that house. You know what they put me through. Max sighed. Yeah, I know. But optics matter, man. And right now, The optics are pretty bad for you. He was right, and I knew it. In the court of public opinion, I was already guilty. The unemployed husband who walked out on his family looked a lot worse than the struggling wife left to pick up the pieces. "There's more," Max said. "Keep scrolling." I went back to Tessa's page and found what he was talking about. Another post from earlier that day, this one just text. "If anyone sees Tom or knows where he is, please ask him to come home. We just want to know he's safe. Whatever problems we were having, we can work through them. Chloe misses her daddy so much." The comments on this one were even worse. People I'd known for years, neighbors, co-workers from my old job, even some of my extended family, all expressing their concern for poor Tessa and their disappointment in me. My phone rang. The caller ID showed my sister-in-law Janet's number. "Tom, thank God. Where the hell are you?" Janet was Tessa's older sister, a nurse who'd always struck me as the more reasonable of the two siblings. If anyone in Tessa's family was going to give me a fair hearing, it would be her. "I'm fine, Janet. I just needed some space." "Space?" "Tom, Tessa says you haven't called or texted in 2 weeks. She's worried sick." I almost laughed. "Worried sick? Did she tell you about the Father's Day gift? Did she mention calling me pathetic and a burden?" There was a pause. "She said you guys had a fight." "Couples fight, Tom? That doesn't mean you abandon your family?" "I didn't abandon anyone. I left a note. I said I was going to think." "For 2 weeks without any contact?" "Tom, that's not normal. That's not what responsible fathers do." The word responsible hit me like a slap. Here I was, still paying the rent on the house with my unemployment money, still covering the utilities, still making sure my family had a roof over their heads, and somehow I was the irresponsible one. "Janet, let me ask you something. In all the conversations you've had with Tessa over the past 6 months, how many times has she expressed any sympathy for what I'm going through? Any understanding that losing my job might be hard on me, too?" Another pause, longer this time. "Tom, I know things have been difficult." "That's not what I asked," she sighed. "Look, I'm not taking sides here, but you need to come home and work this out like adults. Running away isn't solving anything." After I hung up, I sat in my crappy apartment staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of some unknown continent. Everything Janet had said was technically correct. I had left without much explanation. I hadn't called or texted. From the outside, it probably did look like I'd abandoned my family. But they didn't know about the months of constant criticism, the daily reminders of what a failure I was, the way Tessa had turned our daughter against me. They didn't know about the mornings I'd wake up and lie in bed for an extra hour, dreading the moment I'd have to face another day of disappointment and contempt in my own home. My phone buzzed with another text from Max. Check her Instagram. I didn't have Instagram, but I could view public posts through a web browser. Tessa's account was a carefully curated collection of inspirational quotes, selfies, and mother-daughter moments with Chloe. The most recent post was a photo of her and Chloe sitting on our couch, both looking sad and vulnerable. The caption read, "2 weeks without daddy. We're staying strong, but it's so hard. #single mom life, #staying positive, #family first." The hashtags made me want to throw my phone across the room. Single mom life? We were still married. I was still paying the bills. This wasn't single motherhood. This was performance art. But it was working. The post had dozens of supportive comments and offers of help. I recognized names from our neighborhood, from Chloe's school, from the community center where Tessa used to volunteer before she decided that was beneath her too. I was being erased from my own life, replaced by a narrative that cast me as the villain and Tessa as the sufferer. And the worst part was I'd walked right into it by leaving the way I did. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Richter? This is Lisa Chen from Children and Family Services. I need to speak with you about your daughter." My blood turned to ice. "What about my daughter?" "We received a report of child abandonment. I need you to come in for an interview as soon as possible." "Child abandonment? I didn't abandon anyone. I'm still supporting my family financially. Sir, I understand this is upsetting, but we need to follow up on all reports. Can you come in tomorrow morning at 10? After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the sounds of the city outside my window. Sirens in the distance, voices from the bar downstairs, the constant hum of traffic on Dodge Street. Tessa had outplayed me completely. While I'd been wallowing in self-pity in my studio apartment, she'd been building a case against me in the court of public opinion. and now she'd escalated to involving the authorities. I thought about the mug sitting in our kitchen, about the casual cruelty in her voice when she called me pathetic, about the way Chloe had filmed my humiliation for social media likes. They'd wanted to see what disappointment looked like. I was about to show them. The Children and Family Services office smelled like disinfectant and desperation. I sat across from Lisa Chen, a tired-looking woman in her 40s who'd probably seen every variation of family dysfunction imaginable. She had a file folder open in front of her, and I could see Tessa's Facebook posts printed out and paperclipped inside. "Mr. Richter, I want to be clear that this is just a preliminary interview," she said. "We're required to investigate all reports of child abandonment, but that doesn't mean we've made any determinations about your case. I appreciate that, but I want to be clear too. I didn't abandon my child. I left my house after an argument with my wife, but I've continued to provide financial support. I pay the rent, the utilities, the car payment, everything." She made a note on her pad. "Can you provide documentation of that?" I pulled out my phone and showed her my bank account, the automatic payments that had continued even after I moved out. "I've been unemployed for 6 months, but I'm still covering all the family expenses with my unemployment benefits. Your wife says you left without any explanation and haven't contacted your daughter in 2 weeks. That's not entirely accurate." I chose my words carefully. I left a note saying I was going to think, and I haven't contacted them because every interaction with my wife has become hostile and destructive. I thought some space might help cool things down. "What about your daughter? Don't you think she deserves to know where her father is?" The question hit me harder than I expected. Of course Chloe deserved better, but how do you explain to a social worker that your own child has been turned against you, that every conversation becomes an opportunity for more humiliation? "You're right," I said. "I should have handled that better, but I want you to understand the context here." I told her about the Father's Day mug, about the months of criticism and contempt, about the way my unemployment had become a weapon used against me daily. She listened without expression, making occasional notes. "Mr. Richter, I understand that unemployment can put stress on a marriage, but from our perspective, the appropriate response is counseling, not disappearing for 2 weeks. What if I told you my wife has been using social media to create a false narrative about our situation? That she's been portraying herself as a single mother while I'm still financially supporting the family?" She flipped through the folder. "We're aware of the social media posts. They're part of why we're here." "Then you know she's been lying. I'm not missing or dead. I'm not refusing to support my family. I moved out after a fight, but I'm still meeting all my financial obligations." "The concern isn't just financial, Mr. Richter. Your daughter needs emotional support too. She needs to know her father cares about her." She was right, and I knew it. But I also knew that any contact with Chloe meant dealing with Tessa, and Tessa had already proven she'd weaponize whatever I said or did. "I want to see my daughter," I said, "but I need some assurance that my wife won't use that contact against me somehow." Miss Chen closed the folder. "Mr. Richter, my recommendation is that you return home and work on repairing your family relationships. If that's not possible, then you need to establish formal custody arrangements through the court system. What you can't do is remain in limbo while your daughter suffers." Walking out of that office, I felt like I'd been given an ultimatum: surrender completely to Tessa's version of events, or escalate this into a legal battle that would destroy what was left of my family. I called Max from the parking lot. "How'd it go?" he asked. "About as well as you'd expect. They basically told me to go home and apologize or prepare for a custody fight. Maybe going home isn't the worst idea, at least temporarily. Max, you don't understand what it was like living there. Every day was like being slowly poisoned. I can't go back to that." "Then what's your play?" I looked back at the government building, thinking about the folder full of printed Facebook posts, about the narrative Tessa had constructed so carefully. "I need to document everything," I said. "If she wants to play games with social media and government agencies, then I need to build my own case." "What kind of case?" "The kind that shows who's really abandoning who in this situation." That afternoon, I drove to our neighborhood and parked across the street from the house. I wasn't stalking or harassing anyone. I was sitting in my own car on a public street, watching the house I was still paying for. At 2:30 p.m., Tessa came out with Chloe. They got in the car and drove off. I followed at a distance, curious about where they were going on a Tuesday afternoon when Chloe should have been in school. They ended up at Target. I watched from across the parking lot as they went inside, and I waited. 45 minutes later, they came out with shopping bags. Lots of shopping bags. I followed them to their next stop, a nail salon, then Starbucks, then the mall. This was the struggling single mother who was worried sick about her missing husband. The woman who was supposedly barely holding things together was spending the afternoon shopping and getting her nails done. I took photos with my phone. Nothing invasive or creepy, just documentation of their activities. If Tessa wanted to play the sufferer, she needed to look the part. When they got home around 5 p.m., I drove to the apartment and started making notes. Times, locations, purchases. I also started screenshotting every social media post, every comment, every share. My phone rang around 7 p.m. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who'd lived next door for 20 years. "Tom? Oh, thank goodness you're all right. Tessa said you disappeared." "I'm fine, Mrs. Patterson. I just moved out temporarily while we work through some issues." "Well, I'm glad to hear your voice. I have to say, though, I'm a bit concerned about what's been going on over there." "What do you mean?" "Well, there have been cars in your driveway. Different cars, men coming and going at odd hours. And the music has been quite loud some nights. I didn't want to say anything to Tessa because she's going through such a hard time, but..." My grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of cars?" "A red sports car, mostly, a young man with muscles. He's been there quite a bit since you left." I thanked Mrs. Patterson and hung up, my mind racing. A red sports car, a young man with muscles. While Tessa was posting about missing her husband and wanting me to come home, she was entertaining other men. The next morning, I parked across the street again. At 10 a.m., a red Camaro pulled into my driveway. A guy got out, mid-20s, gym rat build, wearing a tank top despite the October chill. He walked up to my front door like he owned the place. I took photos, lots of photos. The guy stayed for 3 hours. When he left, I followed him. He drove to a CrossFit gym on the west side of town. I waited in the parking lot until he came out, then followed him to his apartment complex. That evening, I did something I'd never done in 18 years of marriage. I hired a private investigator. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, a former police detective who specialized in domestic cases. She was expensive, but I figured it was worth it if it meant protecting my relationship with Chloe. "I need to know what's really going on in my house," I told her. "My wife is claiming I abandoned the family, but it looks like she's moved on pretty quickly." Sarah reviewed the photos I'd taken and the social media posts I'd printed out. "This is good documentation, but I can get better. If she's having an affair, I can prove it. If she's neglecting your daughter, I can document that too. I don't want to hurt Chloe. Whatever happens between me and Tessa, I don't want my daughter to suffer for it. Mr. Richter, if your wife is prioritizing her love life over your daughter's well-being, then documenting that protects Chloe, not hurts her." Over the next week, Sarah earned every penny I paid her. She confirmed that the red Camaro belonged to Dylan Carter, a 28-year-old personal trainer who'd been fired from 2 gyms for inappropriate conduct with female clients. She documented his visits to my house, including overnight stays when Chloe was home, but the most damaging evidence came from Chloe's school. Sarah discovered that my daughter had missed 6 days of classes in the 2 weeks since I'd left. When she did attend, she was often late and looked tired. "Your wife isn't just having an affair," Sarah told me during our meeting at a coffee shop downtown. "She's neglecting your daughter to do it. Chloe's grades are slipping, her attendance is sporadic, and according to her guidance counselor, she's been acting out in class." I stared at the folder of evidence Sarah had compiled. Photos of Dylan's car in my driveway. Screenshots of Tessa's social media posts claiming to be a devoted single mother. School records showing Chloe's declining performance. "What's my next move?" I asked. Sarah smiled. "Now we turn the tables. Your wife wants to play sufferer? Let's see how that works out when the truth comes to light." I decided to make my first move at Dylan's gym. CrossFit Revolution was one of those aggressively masculine places where people paid premium prices to lift heavy things and grunt a lot. The walls were covered with motivational posters about pain and weakness, and the air smelled like sweat and protein powder. Dylan was easy to spot. He was in the middle of coaching a class, barking instructions at a group of suburban moms who were struggling through burpees. He looked exactly like Central Casting's idea of a home wrecker, all muscles and hair gel, with the kind of cocky smile that said he'd never met a married woman he couldn't charm. I waited until the class ended, then approached him at the front desk. "Dylan Carter?" He looked up from his protein shake. "Yeah, that's me. You interested in a membership? First session's free." "Actually, I'm Tom Richter. I think you know my wife." The change in his expression was immediate. The cocky smile disappeared. replaced by something between guilt and defiance. Oh, crap. Look, man, I didn't know. Didn't know what? That she was married? That she had a daughter? Or did you just not care? A few people in the gym had stopped their workouts to watch. Dylan glanced around nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the audience. Maybe we should talk outside, he said. No, I think here's perfect. Nice and public, lots of witnesses. I raised my voice slightly, making sure the nearby gym members could hear. See, Dylan? My wife has been telling everyone that I abandoned my family. She's been posting all over social media about what a terrible husband and father I am. But what she hasn't mentioned is that she's been entertaining young men in my house while I'm still paying the rent. Dylan's face flushed red. Dude, you need to calm down. I am calm. In fact, I'm remarkably calm for a man who just found out his wife is cheating on him with someone young enough to be her little brother. The gym had gone completely quiet. Everyone was staring now, phones probably already coming out to record the confrontation. Look, whatever's going on between you and Tessa. Tessa, I interrupted. Is that what she told you to call her? How intimate? Tell me, Dylan, when you're in my bed with my wife, do you ever think about my 16-year-old daughter sleeping down the hall? That hit home. Dylan stepped back like I'd slapped him. It's not like that, man. We're not, She said you guys were separated. Separated? I've been gone for 3 weeks. We're still married. I'm still paying for the house where you're spending your nights. Technically, that makes you a guest in my home. A very unwelcome guest. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of Sarah's photos. His red Camaro in my driveway at 11 p.m. on a school night. Nice car, by the way. I'm sure the neighbors appreciate the noise at midnight when you leave. Dylan looked around the gym, realizing that his reputation was being destroyed in real time. Several of the women from his class were whispering to each other, and not in a good way. You're crazy, man. You need help. What I need is for you to stay away from my family. My wife can make whatever choices she wants, but my daughter doesn't need to see a parade of men coming through her house while her father is painted as the villain. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Dylan, I know where you work, where you live, and where you spend your time. If I find out you've been around my daughter again, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation. Are we clear? He nodded quickly, sweat beading on his forehead despite the gym's air conditioning. Good talk, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear again. Enjoy your workout. I walked out of that gym feeling better than I had in months. For the first time since this whole mess started, I'd been the one in control of the narrative. My phone started ringing before I even reached my car. Tessa. What the hell is wrong with you? She screamed as soon as I answered. Dylan just called me. You can't just show up at his work and threaten him. I didn't threaten anyone. I introduced myself to the man who's been sleeping in my bed and explained the situation. Your bed? Tom, you left. You abandoned us. You don't get to come back now and act like the wronged husband. Abandoned you? Tessa, I've been paying the rent this entire time. I'm still covering the utilities, the car payment, the insurance. The only thing I abandoned was listening to you tell me what a failure I am every single day. That's not, you can't just... She was sputtering with rage, which told me the confrontation with Dylan had rattled her more than she wanted to admit. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice staying calm. I'm going to pick up Chloe from school today. We're going to have dinner and a conversation. A real conversation without you there to poison it. You can't do that. I won't let you. Actually, I can. I'm still her father, and despite what you've been telling people, I haven't abandoned anyone. I'll have her home by 9. I hung up before she could respond. Chloe's school let out at 3:15. I was waiting in the pickup line when she came out, looking surprised to see my car. She approached cautiously, like I might be a mirage that would disappear if she got too close. Dad, what are you doing here? I thought we could spend some time together, maybe get some dinner, talk. She glanced around nervously. Mom's supposed to pick me up. I called the school. They know you're coming with me. Your mom knows too. Chloe got in the passenger seat but kept her distance, pressed against the door like she was ready to bolt at any moment. Where have you been? She asked as I pulled out of the school parking lot. I've been living downtown. I needed some space to think. Mom said you might be dead. The casualness with which she said it hit me like a punch to the gut. Did she really? She said she didn't know where you were or if you were okay. She cried a lot. I drove in silence for a few minutes, trying to process the fact that my wife had been telling our daughter I might be dead while simultaneously entertaining her boyfriend in our house. "Chloe, did your mom tell you why I left?" She shrugged. "She said you guys had a fight about money." "Is that all she said?" Another shrug. "She said you were being selfish and immature, that real men don't run away when things get hard." I pulled into the parking lot of a family restaurant and turned off the engine. "Chloe, I want you to look at me." She turned reluctantly, and I saw so much of Tessa in her face. The skeptical expression, the defensive posture, the way she held herself like she was bracing for disappointment. "I didn't run away because things got hard. I left because living in that house was making me miserable, and I was starting to worry it was making you miserable too." "I'm not miserable." "Aren't you? When's the last time you felt happy at home? Really happy, not just pretending for social media?" She looked away. "I don't know what you mean." "Chloe, I know you've missed school 6 times in the last 3 weeks. I know your grades are dropping. I know you've been acting out in class. That doesn't sound like someone who's doing well." Her head snapped back toward me. "How do you know that?" "Because I'm still your father, and I still care about what happens to you, even if your mother has convinced you otherwise." We sat in silence for a moment. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear her, she said, "It's been weird at home." "Weird? How?" "There's been this guy coming over. Dylan. Mom says he's just a friend, but..." She trailed off. "But what?" "He stays really late sometimes, and Mom acts different when he's around, like giggly and stupid. It's gross." I felt a surge of anger, not at Chloe, but at Tessa for putting our daughter in this position. "How does that make you feel?" "I don't know. Confused, I guess. Like, if you're such a terrible husband, why is she already with someone else? And if you're not terrible, why did you leave us?" It was the most honest thing she'd said to me in months, maybe years. For a moment, I could see past the attitude and the phone addiction to the scared, confused kid underneath. "Chloe, your mom and I have problems that have nothing to do with you. But I never should have left without explaining that to you first. I'm sorry. Are you coming home?" The hope in her voice broke my heart. "I don't think so, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean I'm abandoning you. It means I'm trying to figure out how to be a better father, even if your mom and I can't be married anymore." We went inside and had dinner. Real dinner. Not fast food or takeout, but actual conversation over actual food. We talked about school, her friends, her plans for college. For 2 hours, I got to remember what it felt like to be her dad instead of her disappointment. When I dropped her off at 9 p.m., Tessa was waiting on the front porch. She looked furious, but she also looked worried, which told me Dylan had probably shared the details of our gym encounter. "We need to talk," she said as Chloe went inside. "I'm listening." "You can't keep doing this. Showing up at Dylan's work, taking Chloe without permission. I don't need permission to spend time with my daughter. You do if you're going to fill her head with lies about me." "What lies?" I told her the truth. That we have problems that aren't her fault, and that I'm sorry for leaving the way I did. Tessa stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Tom, I know you're angry, but think about what you're doing. If you keep pushing this, it's going to get ugly, really ugly." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning. You walked out on us. You left me to deal with everything alone. If you try to make me the villain now, I will destroy you." I looked at her standing there on the porch of the house I was paying for, threatening me after spending weeks with her boyfriend. And I realized something important. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. "Tessa, you've already tried to destroy me. The social media posts, the calls to family services, turning Chloe against me. You've been waging war for weeks. The only difference is now I'm fighting back. You have no idea what real war looks like." I smiled. "You're right, but I'm about to find out." The next morning, I called a divorce attorney. Patricia Grady had been recommended by Max, who'd used her services during his own messy divorce 5 years earlier. Her office was in a converted Victorian house near downtown, and everything about it screamed competence and experience. "Mr. Richter, I've reviewed the materials you sent over," she said, gesturing to a folder thick with Sarah's investigation reports. "You have a strong case for custody, but I want to make sure you understand what you're getting into." "What do you mean?" "Your wife has already established a public narrative that paints you as the abandoning spouse. If we go to court, she's going to use that against you. She'll claim you're an unfit father who walked out on his family. But the evidence shows she's having an affair and neglecting your daughter. But evidence and perception are two different things. A judge might look at this and see a woman who made some poor choices after her husband left her. I leaned back in my chair. So, what's your recommendation? We need to flip the narrative. Right now, she controls the story. We need to make it clear that you didn't abandon anyone. You removed yourself from an abusive situation while continuing to support your family financially. Abusive. Patricia opened the folder and pulled out a timeline Sarah had prepared. Constant criticism, emotional manipulation, financial control, turning your child against you. That's emotional misuse, Mr. Richter. The fact that you're a man doesn't make it less real. She was right, but hearing it stated so clinically was jarring. I'd been so focused on Tessa's affair that I hadn't really processed the months of psychological warfare that had preceded it. What's our first move? We file for legal separation and emergency custody. We present evidence of your wife's affair, her neglect of your daughter, and her campaign to alienate you from your child. We also document your continued financial support, despite living separately. How long will that take? The initial filings can be done this week, but Mr. Richter, I need to warn you, once we file these papers, there's no going back. Your wife is going to escalate her attacks on you. She's going to get nastier, more desperate. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the mug sitting in my kitchen, about the casual cruelty in Tessa's voice when she called me pathetic, about Dylan's car in my driveway while my daughter slept down the hall. I'm prepared. That afternoon, I got a call from Chloe's school. She'd been in a fight with another student and was suspended for 3 days. When I arrived at the principal's office, I found my daughter sitting in a chair with her arms crossed, looking defiant and miserable. Mr. Richter, thank you for coming, said Principal Martinez. We tried to reach your wife first, but she didn't answer. Of course she didn't. It was Tuesday afternoon, probably Dylan's day off. What happened? Chloe got into an altercation with another student who was apparently making comments about your family situation. She threw the first punch. I looked at my daughter, seeing the anger and embarrassment radiating off her in waves. What kind of comments? Principal Martinez glanced at Chloe, then back at me. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No, Chloe said suddenly. I want him to know. Madison Jeffries said you were a deadbeat dad who ran off with another woman. She said her mom told her you were probably on drugs or something. The gossip mill had been working overtime, apparently. Tessa's sufferer narrative was spreading through the community like a virus, and now it was affecting Chloe at school. So you punched her? I told her to shut up. She said she was just telling the truth, that everyone knew you were a loser. So yeah, I punched her. Despite everything, I felt a surge of pride. My daughter had defended me, even after weeks of being told I was the villain. Chloe, I appreciate you standing up for me. But violence isn't the answer. Then what is, she asked, her voice cracking. Everyone at school is talking about us. They're saying horrible things about you. About Mom. About our whole family. I can't even eat lunch without someone whispering about how pathetic we are. Principal Martinez cleared his throat. Mr. Richter, I think it would be helpful if you and your wife could present a united front regarding your family situation. The uncertainty is clearly affecting Chloe's behavior. I'll talk to my wife, I said, knowing it was a lie. Tessa and I were way past united fronts. I took Chloe home, but instead of dropping her off, I brought her back to my apartment. She looked around the small space with curiosity rather than judgment. This is where you've been living? Yeah, it's not much, but it's quiet. She sat on my couch and pulled her knees up to her chest. Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? There was no point in lying anymore. Probably. Is it because of Dylan? Dylan is a symptom, not the cause. Your mom and I stopped being happy together a long time ago. We just stayed together because we thought it was better for you. But it wasn't, was it? No, sweetheart, it wasn't. She was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the street below. Finally, she said, I don't want to live with Dylan. What do you mean? Mom's been talking about him moving in. She says it would be good for us to have a man around the house again. But he's not you, and he's not my dad, and I don't want him there. My phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. Where's Chloe? She's supposed to be home by now. I showed the message to Chloe. Your mom's looking for you. Can I stay here tonight? Chloe, I don't think... Please, Dad, just one night. I don't want to go home and pretend everything's fine. I don't want to smile for Mom's stupid videos or be nice to Dylan. I just want to be normal for one night. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw the toll this whole situation was taking. The dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way she seemed to be bracing herself for the next blow. "Okay," I said, "but I need to call your mom and let her know where you are." Tessa answered on the first ring. "Where is she, Tom?" "She's with me. She wants to stay the night." "Absolutely not. Bring her home right now." "Tessa, she got suspended from school today for fighting. She's struggling with all of this, and she needs some space. She needs to be home with her mother, not in whatever dump you're living in now." I looked around my small apartment. It was modest, sure, but it was clean and quiet and free of the toxic atmosphere that had poisoned our house. She needs to be somewhere she can process what's happening to her family without worrying about social media posts or entertaining your boyfriend. Dylan is not... She stopped herself. "Tom, if you don't bring her home right now, I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. I'm her father and she wants to be here. Let's see how that plays out." I hung up and turned to Chloe. "Your mom's not happy." "She's never happy anymore unless she's with Dylan or posting something online. Sometimes I think she forgets I'm even there." That night, we ordered pizza and watched old movies. Chloe fell asleep on my couch around 11, and I covered her with a blanket. She looked so young and peaceful, nothing like the angry, defensive teenager she'd become over the past few months. My phone buzzed with notifications throughout the evening. Tessa had posted on Facebook again, this time claiming I'd kidnapped Chloe and was keeping her from her mother. The comments were predictably supportive of Tessa and critical of me, but I noticed something interesting. There were fewer comments than usual, and some of them were questioning Tessa's version of events. Word was getting out about Dylan, about the real reason for our separation, and people were starting to connect the dots. Around midnight, I heard a car pull up outside. I looked out the window and saw Dylan's red Camaro parked on the street. He got out and started walking toward the building, but stopped when he saw me watching from the window. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then he got back in his car and drove away. The next morning, Chloe woke up early and helped me make breakfast. Real breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast, not the Pop-Tarts and energy drinks that had become standard in our house. "Dad," she said as we were eating, "when you and Mom get divorced, can I live with you?" The question caught me off guard. "Chloe, that's not really how it works. Usually, kids live with their mom and visit their dad. But what if I don't want to? What if I want to live with you instead?" I looked at my daughter across the small table, seeing something I hadn't seen in months. Hope. "Then we'll figure it out," I said. "Whatever happens, I'm not going anywhere again, I promise." After breakfast, I drove Chloe to school. As she was getting out of the car, she turned back to me. "Dad, thanks for letting me stay last night. It was the first time I felt safe in weeks." As I watched her walk into the building, I realized that this was no longer just about my marriage or my pride or even my relationship with Tessa. This was about my daughter's well-being, and I was done letting anyone, including my wife, use her as a weapon. It was time to end this. Patricia filed the divorce and custody papers on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, my phone was exploding with angry texts from Tessa. My email was full of messages from concerned family members, and Tessa had posted a Facebook video that was already going viral in our local community. In the video, she was crying, real tears this time, while holding the legal documents. "I can't believe it's come to this," she said to the camera. "Tom has filed for divorce, and he's trying to take Chloe away from me. After everything we've been through, after all the times I've begged him to come home and work things out, this is how he responds. He's trying to destroy our family." The comments were brutal. People I'd known for years were calling me heartless, selfish, a coward. Several people shared the video, adding their own commentary about what a terrible person I was. But I also noticed something else. A few people were asking questions. Where had I been living? Why was I filing for custody? What was the real story? Max called me around dinner time. "Dude, you need to see this. If it's another social media post about what a monster I am, I've already seen it." "No, this is different. Check Dylan's Instagram." I pulled up Dylan's account on my laptop. His most recent post was a shirtless gym selfie from that morning, with the caption, "New chapter starting soon. Sometimes you have to leave the past behind and focus on your gains. #new beginnings, #fresh start, #no regrets." "He's bragging about it," I said. "The fool is actually bragging about breaking up my marriage." "Keep scrolling," Max said. I went through Dylan's recent posts and found what Max was talking about. Photos of expensive dinners, new clothes, a weekend trip to Kansas City. All posted in the last 3 weeks, all clearly beyond the budget of a part-time personal trainer. He's spending my money, I realized. Tess has been giving him money, and he's been posting about it online. Gets better. Look at the comments on his gym selfie. I scrolled through the comments and found several from women who clearly knew about his relationship with Tessa. One in particular caught my attention. Enjoy it while it lasts, Dylan. We all know how your relationships end. Another. Poor woman has no idea what she's gotten herself into. And then, the most damning. Dylan Carter, home wrecker extraordinaire. How many marriages is that now? I screenshotted everything and sent it to Patricia. Within an hour, she called me back. This is good, Tom. Really good. It shows a pattern of behavior and suggests your wife isn't his first married sufferer. Can we use this in court? Absolutely. But I think we can do better than that. I think it's time to go public with our side of the story. What do you mean? Your wife has been controlling the narrative through social media. It's time for you to tell your story. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at a blank Facebook post. I'd written and deleted a dozen different versions, trying to find the right words to explain 3 weeks of hell without sounding bitter or vindictive. Finally, I settled on the truth. Simple, direct, and supported by evidence. I want to address some things that have been said about me recently. 3 weeks ago, I moved out of my house after months of verbal misuse and constant criticism. I left a note explaining that I needed time to think. I did not abandon my family. I've continued to pay all household expenses, including rent, utilities, and car payments, with my unemployment benefits. I learned this week that my wife has been having an affair with a 28-year-old man who has been staying overnight in our house while our 16-year-old daughter is home. Our daughter has missed 6 days of school in the past 3 weeks and is struggling academically and emotionally. I have filed for divorce and custody because I believe my daughter deserves better than to be used as a prop in social media posts while her mother prioritizes her love life over her well-being. I'm sharing this not to hurt anyone, but because I'm tired of being painted as the villain when I'm trying to protect my child. Sometimes the hardest thing a father can do is fight for his daughter, even when everyone is telling him he's wrong. I attached screenshots of Dylan's Instagram posts, the school records showing Chloe's absences, and one of Sarah's photos showing Dylan's car in my driveway at midnight on a school night. Then I hit post and waited. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour, the post had 50 comments and 20 shares. But unlike Tessa's posts, these comments were mixed. Some people still criticized me, but others were expressing support and asking why they hadn't heard this side of the story before. My phone rang. It was Janet, Tessa's sister. Tom, what the hell is this Facebook post? Are you seriously accusing Tessa of having an affair? I'm not accusing her of anything. I'm stating facts. Those could be anyone's photos. That could be anyone's car. Janet, I hired a private investigator. I have hours of surveillance footage, credit card records, testimony from neighbors. This isn't speculation. There was a long silence. Then, why didn't you just talk to her? Why did you have to make it public? I tried talking to her. She told me I was pathetic and a burden. She filmed me for social media when I was at my lowest point. She's been waging a public campaign against me for weeks while sleeping with another man in my bed. When exactly was I supposed to have this reasonable conversation? Tom, I know Tessa can be difficult, but she loves Chloe. She would never put her in danger. Janet, Chloe got suspended from school yesterday for fighting. She's been missing classes. Her grades are dropping, and she told me she doesn't feel safe at home. How is that not putting her in danger? Another long silence. I need to talk to Tessa. Good luck with that. After I hung up, I noticed that my Facebook post was being shared rapidly. People were commenting with their own stories of similar situations, expressing support, asking questions about Tessa's previous posts. The narrative was shifting. Around 10 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked out the window and saw Tessa standing on the sidewalk, her face red with rage. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Take it down, she said without preamble. Take down that post right now. No. Tom, you're destroying my reputation. You're making me look like a monster. I'm telling the truth. If that makes you look like a monster, maybe you should examine your choices. Those photos don't prove anything. Dylan is just a friend who's been helping me through a difficult time. A friend who spends the night? A friend you've been taking on expensive dates with money from our joint account? A friend who posts about new beginnings and leaving the past behind? She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. You have no idea what you've done. Do you think I'm just going to roll over and let you destroy me? Tessa, you destroyed yourself. I just documented it. I will make you pay for this, Tom. I will make sure you never see Chloe again. I will tell everyone what you're really like, what you've put us through. Go ahead. Tell them. Tell them about the months of emotional misuse, about calling me pathetic and a burden, about the Father's Day mug. Tell them how you turned our daughter against me while you were screwing your boyfriend in our house. I'm sure people will be very sympathetic. She stood there for a moment, realizing that her usual weapons, guilt, manipulation, public sympathy, no longer worked. I wasn't the broken, defeated man who'd left 3 weeks ago. I was someone who'd found his backbone and wasn't afraid to use it. This isn't over, she said finally. You're right, it's not. Tomorrow you'll be served with a restraining order preventing you from taking Chloe out of state. Next week, we'll have a custody hearing where a judge will review all the evidence of your affair and neglect. The week after that, Dylan will probably get bored and move on to his next sufferer, leaving you exactly where you deserve to be, alone. I closed the door and watched through the window as she stood on the sidewalk for several minutes, probably trying to figure out her next move. Finally, she got in her car and drove away. My phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. The Facebook post was being shared beyond my immediate social circle, picking up comments from people I didn't even know. The story was taking on a life of its own. Around midnight, I got a text from Chloe. Dad, I saw your post. Thank you for telling the truth. Can I come stay with you again tomorrow? I texted back. Of course. I love you. I love you too, Dad. For the first time in months, I'm proud to be your daughter. I sat in my small apartment looking at that text message and realized that I'd already won the only battle that mattered. My daughter knew the truth, and she was choosing to stand with me. Everything else was just details. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following Wednesday. In the 5 days between my Facebook post and our court date, Tessa's carefully constructed narrative completely collapsed. It started with Dylan's ex-girlfriends coming forward. My post had been shared enough that it reached women who'd dealt with him before, and they began commenting with their own stories. 3 different women described similar patterns. Dylan targeting married women, moving in quickly, spending their money, then disappearing when things got complicated. One woman, Jennifer Walsh, sent me a private message with photos and text screenshots showing Dylan had used almost identical language with her. The same talk about new beginnings and leaving the past behind while he drained her savings account. Patricia was ecstatic. This establishes a clear pattern of predatory behavior. It shows your wife was targeted by someone who specializes in breaking up marriages. But the real bombshell came on Monday morning when Mrs. Patterson called me. Tom, I hope you don't mind, but I've been talking to some of the other neighbors about what's been going on. We're all very concerned about Chloe. What do you mean? Well, we've been keeping an eye on things since you left, and we've seen some troubling behavior. The loud music at all hours, strange men coming and going, Chloe walking to school alone looking disheveled. We're prepared to testify about what we've witnessed. It turned out that Tessa's performance as the grieving abandoned wife hadn't been as convincing to people who actually lived nearby. The neighbors had seen Dylan's car, heard the parties, noticed Chloe's increasingly erratic behavior. They'd been reluctant to get involved in what they thought was a private family matter, but my Facebook post had given them permission to speak up. By Tuesday evening, I had signed statements from 4 neighbors documenting Tessa's neglect of Chloe and her inappropriate behavior with Dylan. The hearing itself was almost anticlimactic. Judge Harrison was a stern woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen every variation of family dysfunction imaginable. She reviewed the evidence Patricia presented, the surveillance photos, the social media posts, the school records, the neighbor statements, with the detached professionalism of someone who dealt with these cases every day. Tessa's lawyer, a young man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, tried to argue that I'd abandoned the family and that Tessa's relationship with Dylan was irrelevant to her fitness as a mother. Judge Harrison wasn't buying it. Mr. Rodriguez, she said to Tessa's lawyer, your client has been posting on social media for weeks claiming that her husband disappeared without explanation, but the evidence shows he's been paying all household expenses from his unemployment benefits while living separately. How do you reconcile that? Your Honor, my client was emotionally distraught. Your client was having an affair with a man 14 years her junior, while her teenage daughter was struggling in school. The evidence shows the child has missed multiple days of classes, her grades have declined significantly, and she's been acting out behaviorally. Where was your client's attention during this time? Tessa tried to interrupt, but Judge Harrison shut her down with a look. Furthermore, I'm troubled by the social media campaign your client has waged against her husband. Using a child as a prop for sympathy while engaging in behavior that directly contradicts the narrative she's promoting shows a concerning level of manipulation. The judge awarded me temporary custody of Chloe with supervised visitation for Tessa. She also ordered Tessa to undergo counseling and prohibited her from posting about the case on social media. Walking out of that courthouse with my daughter was one of the best moments of my life. "Is it over?" Chloe asked as we got in my car. "The legal part is mostly over. Your mom will probably appeal, but we have a strong case." "What about Dylan?" I smiled. "Dylan's about to discover what happens when his sugar mama doesn't have access to my money anymore." I was right. Within a week, Dylan had moved on to his next target, a divorced woman in her 40s who managed a local restaurant. Tessa tried calling him repeatedly, but his phone had been disconnected. She drove to his apartment, only to find out he'd moved without leaving a forwarding address. The woman who'd been so confident in her ability to manipulate and control suddenly found herself completely alone. Max called me the following Saturday morning. "Dude, you need to see this. More social media drama? Check Tessa's Facebook page." I pulled up her profile and found what he was talking about. She'd posted a long, rambling message about betrayal and abandonment, clearly directed at Dylan. The post was incoherent and desperate, nothing like the carefully crafted sufferer narrative she'd maintained for weeks. The comments were brutal. People who'd supported her during her campaign against me were now mocking her for being naive about Dylan. Several people pointed out that everyone had tried to warn her, but she'd been too blinded by attention to listen. "She's having a complete breakdown," I told Max. "Karma's a witch," he replied. That afternoon, Chloe and I went furniture shopping for a bigger apartment. We'd found a 2-bedroom place in a better neighborhood, and I'd gotten a job offer from a tech company downtown. Things were finally looking up. "Dad," Chloe said as we were picking out a couch, "do you think Mom will be okay?" It was a complicated question. Part of me wanted to say that Tessa had made her choices and would have to live with the consequences. But I could see the genuine concern in my daughter's eyes, and I realized that protecting Chloe meant helping her maintain some compassion for her mother, even after everything that had happened. "Your mom is going through a difficult time right now. She made some bad choices, and she's dealing with the fallout from those choices. But she's a survivor, and she'll figure things out eventually." "Do you hate her?" I thought about that for a moment. "No, I don't hate her. I'm angry about what she did to our family, and I'm disappointed in the choices she made. But hate requires too much energy, and I'd rather focus that energy on building a good life for us. Can I still see her sometimes?" "Of course. She's still your mother, and that relationship is important. We'll just make sure those visits happen in a way that's healthy for you." That evening, we moved into our new apartment. As I was unpacking boxes in the kitchen, I found the world's biggest disappointment mug. Chloe had apparently packed it without telling me. "Why did you bring this?" I asked, holding it up. She looked embarrassed. "I thought maybe we could use it as a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "That sometimes the people who disappoint you the most are the ones who don't believe in themselves. And that sometimes the biggest disappointment can turn into the biggest comeback." I looked at my 16-year-old daughter, amazed by her wisdom and resilience. Despite everything she'd been through, despite the manipulation and the broken home and the public humiliation, she'd emerged stronger and more thoughtful than I could have hoped. "You know what?" I said, putting the mug in the cabinet. "I think I'll keep this. But I'm going to use it for coffee every morning, and every time I do, I'm going to remember that disappointment is just another word for opportunity." 6 months later, I was promoted to senior systems analyst at my new job. Chloe's grades had improved dramatically, and she'd been accepted to 3 colleges. Tessa had moved back in with her parents and was working part-time at a call center while attending court-ordered therapy. Dylan had been arrested for fraud in connection with his latest relationship, and his pattern of targeting vulnerable women had finally caught up with him. I never did take down that Facebook post. It remained on my page as a testament to the power of truth over narrative, evidence over manipulation, and courage over fear. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how things ended, if I wish I'd tried harder to save my marriage. The answer is always the same. I regret that it took me so long to stand up for myself and my daughter. I regret the months of misuse I endured because I thought it was better for Chloe to have an intact family. I regret not seeing sooner that sometimes the most loving thing a father can do is refuse to let his child grow up thinking dysfunction is normal. but I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret exposing the truth. And I don't regret showing my daughter that disappointment doesn't have to be permanent. Every morning, I drink my coffee from that mug and remember the man I used to be, defeated, humiliated, convinced I was everything my wife said I was. Then I look around at the life I've built, at the relationship I've rebuilt with my daughter, at the respect I've earned back from my community. And I smile. Because sometimes the world's biggest disappointment turns out to be the world's greatest comeback. And that's a story worth telling.